Hey everybody, the Miser here with another video to add to my general series playlist. And this one is specifically going to talk about one of my favorite topics, dragons. I love dragons. And the fact that they're in this game too is awesome. So, there is a lot to consider when talking about dragons, how to use them, and they are very impactful in the game, so it does help to have all the knowledge possible on how to use them effectively. So I'm going to cover the topics that you see on your right, I guess. So how are they used? Dragons versus spirit beasts. I want to give you a general idea of what spirit beasts are good for, what dragons are good for, and really the difference between the two because you can't use them at the same time. Where can you obtain dragons? Which ones can you obtain? And also how to feed and refine dragons, just make them stronger so that your general is going to be stronger as well. And then lastly, I'm just going to give you a quick tour of all the dragons in the game, where to get them, the requirements, and so on. Okay, so first off, using the dragons. This is pretty straightforward. It's the same as Spirit Beast. When you are in the general tabs, let's say you're looking at a general here. For example, I've got Robert Lee here, and he's got the Celtic Dragon. All you do is click on the little circle up here. If there's nothing equipped, it'll be a blank circle. Let me show you an example of that. So this guy has, you can see there's kind of like the background of a dragon there. And if you have a dragon or a spirit beast available, then your entire list will show up here and you just choose the one that you are going to use. One thing to know about equipping and unequipping dragons is that when you take off a dragon or a spirit beast, there's a 1 hour cooldown before you can use it again. So that means that if I go back to one of these other guys that actually has something equipped, like my Robert Lee here, and I click cancel on the dragon to take it off, I cannot put it on another general for 1 hour. So take that into consideration when you're trying to change things around. If you need something right away, it's probably not the right time to remove your dragon or spirit beast. Okay, dragons in general, you have to consider the skills that they have, and I'm going to talk more about that later, whether you're choosing to use them offensively or defensively. Some dragons, they only have skills that are good for offense, and some that have skills that are good for defense. So pay attention to those so that you can use them effectively. Of course, there are other things that will still have an impact as well. So if you put an offensive dragon on your wall, yeah, it's not going to get all the skill applied to your defense, but it doesn't mean it's useless either. And that's something we'll talk about that as well. Dragon or spirit beast. What I mean by that is you cannot have both. You can't have a dragon and a spirit beast on the same general. They consume that slot. So you either have a dragon or you have a spirit beast, not both. Okay. So dragons versus spirit beasts. That goes into a good topic there. What are dragons good for? What are spirit beasts good for? Spirit beasts are in general. I have all my notes here, and you can see them on the slides to the right. But spirit beasts, I'm going to start there. They have uses that are pretty niche. So what I mean by that is they're very specific in how they are good. So for example, the Bird of Hurricane, that is an awesome spirit beast. It's not something I would use for attacking players, but I use it every day nonstop because it has the double items drop rate. So Bird of Hurricane is the first spirit beast that you probably should get because as you increase your double item drop rate, you get more equipment, speed ups, and so on. It's just so valuable. So in that way, spirit beasts can be very awesome. You look at Thunder Scorpion, March Speed. Do I really need March Speed? I probably shouldn't have done that one first. There's some better choices. For example, I would have preferred to do this guy because troop load 30%. If you have a clearing general like, what's this dude's name over here? I always forget their names. Here, Amir. If you have this guy as a troop load guy, an extra 30%, that's very valuable. So I like to put that spirit beast on him when I'm clearing some big targets. What else? So I've already talked about this guy. And the last one is March Size Capacity, which is okay, but not very high priority. So Bird of Hurricane, Lord of Lava, they have some uses that you don't see in the dragons, and they can be very valuable. Now, Spirit Beasts are also much cheaper. You'll notice that the cost to upgrade is just some gems and metals, which are pretty insignificant. Gold is insignificant these days. So to upgrade the quality, it's not a really big deal. It's pretty easy. It's not necessarily easy to get all the spirit books. It takes a long time to get to level 10, for sure. But it doesn't cost you anything, so they are quite cheap. On the other hand, dragons are not cheap. So even though spirit beasts are easier to obtain and they're cheaper and stuff, dragons are more expensive, but they are better in some other ways. First, dragons improve your general attributes. And what I mean by that is right here. When I equip this dragon onto my general, it increases my general's attack, politics, defense, leadership by 85 at the level that this guy is at. So it increases my general power, which, as you know from generals, that has an impact on a lot of elements in the game. So it's very valuable, much more valuable than the just little bit of increase to archer attack or so on that we get on the spirit beasts. Another great thing about dragons is they have skills. So if you click on this little icon here at the bottom for your dragon, you'll see that the skill that they have. I've really slacked on my dragons, and I'm turning that around, trying to get them up, but I'll be able to show you these anyway. So for example, my Celtic Demon here, the level 10 ability that they have is they increase marching, ranged, and ground troop attack defense. So that's only when you're attacking. March size capacity by 15%, that's great, and general survivability. So it gets this. The Spirit Beast doesn't get a skill, it just has some passive stats like mounted attack, defense, HP, just depending on the troop type, and then one kind of interesting side ability. So dragons have some interesting things, as you'll see when I go through the tour. The last really important thing about a dragon, and this is huge, is that you can refine the dragon. That means that you can click Refinement and customize what you need the dragon for. My Celtic Demon is all about ranged attacks, so I've increased those, and it goes up to 15%. So my guy's looking pretty good, and when I add that to an archer PvP general, that's pretty impactful. So dragons could be really great in that regard too. The last thing that is the most important for sure is dragons just look cool. They look so much cooler than spirit beasts. You don't even get to see the graphic to the spirit beasts. But when people use dragons and they attack, they're flying on top of their army. That already makes it better. Just that alone. All right? So dragons, way better, but spirit beasts are definitely useful in certain situations. Okay, so I'm going to talk about obtaining dragons next. This is probably the number one question people will have, so let me get right into it. Dragons are hard to obtain. They are. They're not easy at all. Some of them are near impossible or impossible for some players, but everybody has a chance of at least getting the 2 first dragons from the pasture. So every dragon has its own individual requirements. Some are located in the pasture, right here. And some of them are from achieving your wonder level. So let me look at them just quickly. So if I go into pasture, if you don't have your pasture up to level 26, there'll be a little grayed out icon here. It says you have to get to level 26 before you can get a dragon. The first dragon obtainable is Celtic Demon at level 26, and then Fafnir is available at level 30. So those are from the pasture. I skipped one, and yes, I'll get back to it. The wonder, when you unlock your wonder, which requires for you to here get personal ranking in the top 5 of your server war, and you also need to have been king or queen twice on your server. And I don't think you necessarily need that one. So you just need these 2, I believe, and it'll unlock your wonder, and that gets you your first dragon. Your second dragon is when you get to Wonder Level 2, and your third one is when you get to Wonder Level 3. The cost of upgrading your Wonder and stuff and the requirements makes it hard for most people. Very hard. So most will focus on the pasture and getting those first ones, which are really awesome in the first place. So that's really where to start. Okay. Now onto the upgrading your dragons, making them stronger. So there are two tabs at the bottom of the dragon screen. There's feed and there's refinement. And when you feed dragons, it gives you an option, well, 6 options of things that you can feed. I don't know why dragons eat materials. That really sucks because I kind of wish I could use materials for other things. But you'll get 6 things that pop up, and you only get those 6 per day unless you choose to use gems to refresh it. And you can only refresh up to 10 times. Now, dragons are going to take a long time anyway, so I wouldn't, as someone that doesn't spend a lot in the game and doesn't like to waste stuff, I would suggest that you just wait it out. Just every day, get what you can, and use the ones that are valuable. It'll take a long time to level up the dragon, but that's okay. You don't need to do it all in one day and just waste it all. There's plenty of time to make it happen. So what I typically do when I'm feeding is I look at the materials that I have an excess of. Like, for example, this one, I have tons of them, so I'll use that. And gold I use all the time as well, just because I always have an excess of gold from Vikings. But definitely don't use the materials that are most valuable to you. I will never, for example, use dragon scales because they're used in pretty much everything valuable. But really pay attention to the ones that you want to use. Only use what is in excess. So that's definitely a consideration. Don't spend the materials that you need for other things, because other slots will come up, other things that you'll be able to spend on. I never use Source of Life. I never use what else? What do you call it? Revival stones, gems. I never use anything that I consider valuable, because there's always some things that I can just toss away. But really, that one's up to you. What else? What do you get by feeding them? Okay, that's the big question. Well, when you feed them, for example, if I try to feed the Source of Life, which I'm not going to do, it gives you a certain amount of experience. And the more valuable or the higher level, like material, for example, if I have one of the red materials rather than the yellow, then it will give me more experience. So just choose what's valuable, and over time you're going to be getting experience to level up your dragon. It goes to a maximum of 10, and it does take a very long time, so be prepared for that. But it's worth it. Okay, next, refinement. Now this is super important. Just like refining your general, you can refine your dragon to get stats. I've already talked about it a little bit, but when you are doing the refinements for your dragons, make sure you pay attention to what those dragons are good for. I'm going to talk about this in the tour again, but Celtic Demon, for example, if you look at his skill, he's marching range troop attack, marching ground troop defense. So you could use him as either a ground or a ranged troop attack, but I prefer to use this dragon for ranged, for archer attacking. So I geared my refinement towards that. I didn't necessarily have to do troop attack, ranged troop attack, just pure like that. I could have done possibly a little defense and all that, but that's just the way I chose to do it. Fafnir, on the other hand, if you look at his skill, the level 10 skill, marching mounted troop attack 25%, marching siege machine attack 25%, march speed. It would be very sad to not use Fafnir as an attacking monsters kind of cavalry dragon, because he's just so valuable in that way. You'll hit the world boss harder, you will hit more bosses, and really you need to consider that when you're doing your refinement. So I did mounted troop attack and mounted troop HP. Attack would be the strongest, HP second strongest. Defense is okay, but I would always choose HP and attack over defense. What else here? So those are the kind of things to consider when you're doing the refinement. Let's move on. I have a very quick colored chart here of the difficulty to obtain certain dragons. At the very top, you'll see there's Ladon, and I don't even know how to say his Ladon. It looks like he's like just looking at the screen, you look at the screen, it says use dragon egg ladon or ladon, whatever, when pasture reaches 35. So just looking at that, it looks like, oh, okay, I just got to get my pasture to 35 and basically I'll get this guy. But to get the dragon egg, if you click on that button, it says rank the top 50 in All-Star Battlefield to get the egg. So that is realistically not very obtainable for the majority of players in this game. Very, very few players will achieve that and get that egg. So do you really need to get your pasture up to level 35? Probably not. It's probably a waste for most people. Who knows if that will change in the future? Hopefully they realize that that's difficult, because the same people that got it the first time it came around are probably the same people that got it the second time, and you can only have one. So what's the point? It's just sitting there to taunt you, and that's really annoying. I really hope that they make a change on that. The other ones I have as dark orange. They're all the Wonder Dragons. So they're kind of in order. The third one is the hardest because you have to get your Wonder level to 3. Second hardest would be this one. But they're all included in the same color, just because the hardest part of getting this is actually achieving these two for most players. Some players, it's not going to be realistic for you to try to get in the top 5 server war. That's just the reality. So these are probably unattainable for a lot of players, but definitely more players will be able to get the Wonder Dragons than the Ladon or Ladon, whatever. The yellow colored ones are the ones that are obtainable by pretty much every player, as long as they are saving up and preparing for them. If you get your pasture to 26, you can get Celtic Demon. It'll cost gems, and you'll have to save up for it, but you can do it. Fafnir in the same way. If you get to the level 30 pasture, he requires some dragon crystals. You can do it. Those two are obtainable. So they're not easy. I wouldn't put them in the green level, because they do take saving up, and they do take time to get there, but they are obtainable, and they are very good as well. And I got a little sad face dude, because there's nothing easily obtainable. They should have had at least one in there that, isn't the greatest, but is very obtainable for anybody, just to get your feet wet, but they chose not to. Okay, and here begins the tour of the dragons. So the first one, I'm going to skip over some of the stuff I have already talked about, but the first guy here, the Celtic Demon, I said requires pasture level 26 or above. That just unlocks them, and as soon as you get that, there'll be a button here that you pay 300,000 gems, which is a lot, yes. But you can save up for him. It is obtainable. When you get that, you can unlock him, and he'll be level 1, and you can work on him while you get your pasture to 30 for Fafnir. He is, like I said, primarily offensive archer PvP. He's really good for that, but he can be used for other things. And I say specifically offensive because of the marching ranged troop attack. So if you decide to use him on your wall, it's not bad. It's still probably better than the Spirit Beast because of the general attributes. Those are going to have a pretty big impact, and the Refinement are going to have a pretty big impact. So he is still probably better on your wall if you don't do a lot of offensive PvP. Okay, and the next one, since I've already kind of looked at the skill, I was planning to look at these skills. But the next dragon on my list here is Fafnir, and this is probably my favorite guy because I use him for my bosses, and I do a lot of bosses. His primary skill is the marching mounted troop attack, march speed, the rest not that important. And you definitely want to refine him for mounted cavalry stuff. And the general attributes, seems like he gets more attack defense than Celtic Demon, if you take a look. A little bit overall more attributes, which is pretty great for cavalry, because you're going to do a lot of, the attack is pretty significant on your cavalry. So he costs 1,400 dragon crystals when you do unlock your pastor to level 30. All right, Ladon, I don't have it, obviously. So I had to get some friends to send over some pictures of what that looks like, and that way I'd be able to share it with you. But to get your Dragon Egg, you would have to be in the top 50 All-Star Battlefields. He's good for ranged PvP, as you'll see in the skill in a little bit, and requires Pastor 30. So if you look at the picture here, he gets ranged troop attack, this is at level 10. He gets ranged troop attack 25%, and then he gets 2 debuffs, which is nice for PvP. So enemy mounted troop HP minus 25%, not the best, it's alright. Enemy troop defense overall for every troop 15%. Now that's much more significant than the first. General survival rate, not that important. So he is decent. He is pretty good, especially that troop defense, and that's a great addition. But really, is it achievable for most people? Not really, unfortunately. All right, Norway Ridge. Norway Ridge is next. He requires, or she, I shouldn't make assumptions here. Norway Ridge requires Wonder level 1. The skills that you get for Norway Ridge are at level 10, ground troop HP and mounted troop HP are reduced by 30%. So he could be put on a subordinate city and those would apply through. You could put him on the wall as well, and that would work if you don't have the next dragon that I'm going to talk about. So he will give those debuffs against your enemy when they're attacking, or you could use him offensively as well, and because he does have the proportion of dead troops in PvP, so you get some revival there, which is nice. So prime. Oh, that kind of skipped forward. Whoops, I'm missing something. All right, but it should say. Oh, here we go. I'm getting confused. Primary usage is PvP, just in general. I put PvP just general because there's a lot of different uses for him or her. Dragon of Thebes, or Thebes, I guess, requires Wonder level 2. I can't show you a picture, unfortunately, but Wonder level 2, so as soon as you get Wonder level 1, which is the hard thing, you could just upgrade your Wonder for some resources, badges, and stones. There's nothing else that's huge here. You need Monarch's Glory, which is, yeah, this one, so you should already have that. And the usage for this guy, now Dragon of Thebes, or Thebes, I think, is really significant. Take a look at this one. In-city siege machine attack and in-city ground troop defense. Those are huge for a wall general. If you throw this dragon on the wall, it can have a very big impact on your defense. Hospital capacity, 25% again. So this guy, this is probably my favorite one so far. Definitely the favorite one I don't have. But that one's coming up. Lastly, Nidhogg. Wonder level 3. And when you get Nidhogg, I say primary usage wall general. I think that might be a typo here. Yeah. So I didn't mean to put wall general. I probably just didn't edit it. Mounted troop attack 25%, ranged troop attack 25%, enemy wounded into death when attacking, so hurt your enemy more, and so he's more of an attacker, but it's pretty general. It's not marching mounted, it's not ranged marching attack, so you could use him defensively, you can use him offensively. He's pretty well an all-around kind of dragon. And I believe that's about it. If you do have any questions about dragons, like here's one that I had a long time ago. If you do have any, please throw them in the comments and I will do my best to try to answer them. The question that I had when I first started out, which I'll share with you, is if I'm doing refinement and I have a level 1 dragon, will that reduce the cap? Like maybe I can only get up to 5%, like 1 to 5%. And the answer was no. Right from level 1 you can start refining and the cap will be the cap. It's not going to change, unlike Unlike gear, where you start off and you have to star it, and then the cap increases based on the quality of the gear. Or you upgrade Dragon to Ares, for example, and the cap or the maximum it increases. That's not the case here, so you can do that right away. All right, that's all I've got for you. If you do have any questions, again, put them in the comments and I'll get to them. And that is about it from here.